Yo, we're being recorded right now. Trump is going to take this and he's going to use it in his ads in the days following the election to be like, see,
all the liberals.
Okay, but George Soros told me it'd be okay. If this clip is still running on Newsmax, check us out at millennialshow.com. That's millennialshow.com. Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela. It's so loud.
I just had to turn down my volume like 80%.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Oh.
Honestly, that's how I feel. I imagine, Do you remember, who was it back in 2020 in Japan that told roller coaster riders to scream inside their heart?
Oh, yeah.
So that they wouldn't spread COVID germs when they were shouting on roller coasters. That sound is what I imagine people imagining when they're screaming inside their heart.
Sorry,
I'm
losing my touch. Back in the day, I used to actually pull away from my mic and yell, but now I just did it directly into the mic. So I apologize for that.
It's okay. We'll let it go.
I did actually get my COVID and flu shots today.
Ooh.
So my brain's a little like cloudy. So I think I'm just going to spend most of today's episode screaming, which actually is appropriate this week, given we're so close to the election. How are you two feeling right now?
I don't know. I don't know how to feel. We'll get into this a little bit later, and it'll probably come up throughout the episode. I just don't give a fuck about the polls. I don't. They mean nothing to me. They were really off in 2020. They were really off in 2016. They consistently underestimate Trump's performance. And I don't trust traditional polling to give us an accurate prediction of what's to come anymore. So that leaves me not knowing what to think. I'm like focusing mostly on early voter turnout on a state-by-state basis. Like that is giving me more hope than anything, because we know Dems tend to vote early. So, that's how I feel. I feel complicated.
I feel complicated. Update your Facebook status. It's complicated with America.
Me. America.
How are you feeling, Pam?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. It kind of feels like we have more time, but at the same time, I can't believe it's next week already. And so I think I'm just in denial of the fact that it's right around the corner now for real. And like, this is our last show before Election Day.
Yeah. And because of that, we will be focusing primarily only on the election. Smoke them while we got them. Today, we each brought a few stories that have been on our radars in the past couple of days concerning the election. I'm honestly feeling optimistic. I'm feeling excited. I'm excited for this next chapter of America. I know we shouldn't be paying too close attention to the polls, but and I still remember the sickening feeling of 2016, but I read a lot of what's happening in this country, and I feel like we got this. And I'm not going to say it's going to be a landslide. We're going to make some predictions at the end of the episode. But I feel like there's a chance it could be a big landslide for Kamala Harris.
Honestly, I agree. I think there is a chance for that. That is one of the things that I think the polls could be underestimating. I think the scary thing is that both candidates could really overperform or underperform. And I don't know that people are ready for those likelihoods, because the polling is telling us it's basically going to be a coin flip. Yeah. And I think there's potential for, I hope Kamala, but I think there's potential for it to be a surprise either way. And that's what's making me nervous.
Another reason I'm excited about the election is I'm having an election night party. And I was doing a lot of party planning last night. And I don't want to spoil all the details just yet, but I went on a little shopping spree for the party. And I'll reveal one item I purchased for the party: Trump toilet paper.
Oh, I thought you were going to say coconuts.
You know what? I'm still planning that, but I have another coconut related thing or two up my sleeve that I'll take pictures of all this and share it on social media. Only if Kamala wins. I'm not posting my party on social media if she loses. That's no fun.
Not even the Trump toilet paper.
Okay, maybe that I'll make an exception for. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to election night. But so we're each going to take turns today and discuss a couple things, like I said, that have been on our radar. Let's start with you, Pam. What's been on your radar?
For me, it's been the revving up of the star power that's been showing up at these Harris Waltz rallies. It's not really anything new for celebrities to come out and endorse, but I feel like in these last 2 weeks, they've really been trying to make sure that they have somebody huge from like every kind of state or city that they're hitting in, so that it really kind of resonates with the crowds that are there. So this kind of first popped up on my radar with Eminem, who joined Obama and Waltz at the rally in Detroit, where he's from. He didn't perform, but Obama actually ended up doing a few bars from Lose Yourself, proving that he's still the coolest former president. But yeah, I mean, like, I think like Eminem is somebody that like isn't usually afraid to speak his mind. And like, he has been very left leaning for a while, but it was still cool to see him like come out for this. And he made a really good speech at the beginning. And yeah, it's kind of cool to see him there.
Yeah. To see him show up for a political rally was a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever done that before.
You know what? I was trying to think. I don't think he has either. I know he's spoken out on certain issues, but I can't recall personally if he's ever actually come out and like fully endorsed a candidate as far as like going to a rally.
At any rate, it's definitely not his usual style. So it was really good to see him there.
Yeah, I guess he had to cancel out Kid Rock's appearance at all the Trump rallies because, you know, he's a fellow Detroit boy.
Right.
So he's like, let me cancel that out.
Did you see all the commentary saying, I'm really glad in the national divorce we got Eminem and they got Kid Rock?
Yeah, that is a big win.
I was just going to say, I don't feel like either of them are massively relevant these days, but of the two, I'd rather take Eminem, and I think he's got the leg up.
Eminem just put out a new single. I think he's always relevant. Yeah.
But are people talking about that album? I haven't heard great things about that album.
Yeah, it's a single. Okay. But yeah.
All right.
But I think he like resonates.
Back off.
I think he's relevant with millennials, if anything, and that is still important, you know?
Yeah. No, it's cool to see. I'm thrilled about it.
Well, somebody that you might be a little bit more excited about is Beyonce, who did finally make her long-awaited appearance at Harris's rally in Houston, which is Beyonce's hometown. The big clip that was circulating around her speech, she actually introduced Harris, was her saying, "I'm not here as a celebrity, I'm here as a mother." And people just kind of thought that it was kind of funny. But I actually think that it was important for her to make that distinction that, like, regardless of how big your star is or how much money you have, you're still like voting for the future of your children. And children have been such a big tentpole discussion topic, for better or worse, as part of this election. Yeah. So yeah, it was smart of her to do that.
How did you feel about her not performing? Because I think some of the reporting was speculating in hindsight that she was going to be performing. She didn't.
Well, she might be saving that for the inauguration. Like, she performed for Obama's inauguration. So, well, sticking to the theme of celebrities Andrew's excited about, Bruce Springsteen also made an appearance.
Who did perform.
He did perform. This was last night, right? Did you tune in?
Philly and Atlanta. You know what? I watched it after the fact. I think it was the same thing. He appeared with his BFF Obama in both places. And then in Atlanta, Kamala was there too. So yeah, Bruce is no stranger to campaigning for Democrats. He's done it. He did it in 2008, 2004, 2012, 2006. He's done it the past like 4 or 5 election cycles. So,
and yet Republicans still misconstrue Born in the USA.
I know. One of his most misunderstood songs ever, I think.
I also wanted to bring up Bad Bunny, who did not actually show up at a rally, but he actually took to Instagram following Trump's rally in New York City, he was at Madison Square Garden, could not fill up the venue. Surprise, surprise, because New York is not going to turn red, suddenly just because he holds a rally there. But at this rally, he actually featured a comedian named Tony Hinchcliffe, and he made some comments in poor taste about Puerto Rico, where Bad Bunny's from. We're actually going to talk about this a little bit more in depth later on. But I wanted to bring this up because after these comments were made, he actually took to his Instagram to share a clip of Harris's plans for Puerto Rico. And Bad Bunny has over 45 million followers, but more importantly, he is huge amongst the Hispanic and Latino population as an artist. And the Hispanic and Latino population kind of like sways a little bit both ways, unfortunately, despite the fact that obviously Trump has said a lot of nasty stuff about that group of people in particular. So I thought that it was really great to see Bad Bunny using his influence on this, because like somebody like him could really have the potential to sway the Latino vote in favor of Harris, which would be huge.
Yeah. And I think Laura and I both have thoughts on this, but we'll wait until we get to that story later on. But yeah, it was good to see him speaking out for sure.
And then to wrap up the star power portion of this episode, we'd be remiss not to talk about Taylor Swift, specifically because I think a lot of people are wondering where Taylor is. So currently, she's on her last leg of the North American leg of the Eras Tour. She will be in Indianapolis from the 1st through the 3rd, but she does have a gap in her schedule between that and November 14th when she hits Toronto. So I guess there's a possibility that she could show up somewhere. Personally, I think the odds of her popping up at like any kind of Harris event between now and Election Day are slim, but I would definitely keep an eye on her socials because she'll likely be using her platform to remind people to get out and vote. And she's done that in the past. So I think that'll be her contribution. And if it was anybody else, it would be like, well, she's kind of phoning it in, but she's proven that her just posting on Instagram stories is enough to create a movement. So that would still be really big.
Yeah,
it would be, but I still want to see her hop on the PJ and show up with Kamala Harris somewhere. She can do it.
That would be cool.
She flew from Japan to Vegas to watch her boyfriend compete in the Super Bowl.
True.
She can cross a few states to show up with Kamala for a few hours.
Lag.
And she also doesn't care about how often she flies on her PJ. So she can go ahead and hop on the plane for a little bit. She loves attention too. You can't tell me she doesn't. So I'm optimistic she will do something.
Right.
I mean, after November 5th, it's kind of pointless. So she's only got like 5-6 days to do something. And look, yeah, she's touring right now, but it's not as strenuous to show up at an event and show up on stage for 5-10 minutes as it is to perform a full-blown concert. And my point is just it's not like it's gonna be a huge physical burden on her to maybe throw in an extra event.
Do you think she would maybe record another endorsement and put that up on socials?
That'd be cool.
Is that not her style?
That would be cool. Well, she might. I know in the past she's also like baked, like last election, she baked Biden Harris cookies. And she posted a picture of her like being like, I'm voting for Biden and Harris. And I'm like really excited to cheer on Harris in particular. So, I mean, it's possible she'll do something super cutesy like that again to remind people, like, first of all, what her stance is, and then also to get out and vote.
Speaking of Biden Harris cookies, I went to a housewarming party a couple of weeks ago, and one of the desserts that he had was Biden Harris 2024 cookies, and I felt like I entered a time machine. I'm like, what am I looking at?
That person got them on sale.
I was like, how do you still have these? And are they still edible? And he had like put them in a freezer to let them keep. They still tasted like rock hard and not good, but I did take a picture of them because I thought it was so funny to see that in October 2024.
Right. It's like, wait, what year is it? What month is it?
This is somebody who was upset that, in his opinion, Biden was forced off the ticket. Yeah. So he's still reeling,
and
I think.
It's crazy that it feels like that was so long ago, but it wasn't. That was just a few months ago.
And honestly, yeah, I kind of do think Biden was forced off the ticket, but I think that was also for good reason. Because if we had a Biden candidacy right now, I would be very certain about the outcome of this election. And I don't think it would have been a good one for us.
I agree. And I agree he was forced out, but I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
Unlike this other person with the Biden cookies. I'm glad it happened. Which reminds me, I think I need a Nancy Pelosi life-size standee at my election night party too.
Oh my
she's
gosh.
credited with making that happen.
Yeah. She kind of stabbed him in the back a little bit, but at the same time, like, sorry, this is bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's
as
bigger
Biden,
than you.
I think recognized. I think
yes.
Yeah.
I think he got there. I will say I'll forever be mad that he was put up on that debate stage like that. That should have never happened. And I'll never not be mad about that.
Yeah. Remember when Trump was saying they were going to drug him up to keep him like looking alive on stage, and then the exact opposite happened? They gave him too many drugs or no drugs at all.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. They didn't give him any drugs.
Why didn't we follow Trump's advice? All right, so something I wanted to talk about. Late last week, we had a classic Friday night news dump. The Washington Post announced that they would not be endorsing a presidential candidate, the first time in decades. It quickly came out that this was owner Jeff Bezos' decision, which further enraged everybody. 200,000 people have canceled their WAPO subscriptions since this went down on Friday. Truly a stunning number. To put that in perspective, the New York Times had reported the Post had added 4,000 subscribers since the beginning of 2024 through September, meaning they lost 50 times the amount of subscribers they have gained this year. It also works out to about 8% of their readership who canceled. Stunning.
Yeah, they also lost like half their editorial board and a bunch of writers. I mean, people were resigning in protest because the endorsement for Kamala was already written.
Mm-hmm.
They had it ready to go, and Bezos killed it.
Yeah,
that's wild.
There were people calling for somebody at the Post to leak it. That hasn't happened yet, but I think that would be pretty great if the endorsement did get leaked. So Bezos wasn't the first one to come out and announce this. Like I said, they posted this other notice about it, and they basically said that we're going to get back to our roots. We didn't used to endorse candidates, so we're going to get back to that. And we don't want to be seen as a partial media source. So we're going to go ahead and just let our readers decide. But when you issue an endorsement, it is the editorial board. It is the opinion section in which the endorsement gets published. So nobody was buying this. On Monday, Bezos did write an opinion piece on his own, and it was just giving just trust me, y'all energy, rich tech bro energy. It did him no favors, and I bet it led to even more cancellations because it was so stupid. I actually did have a Washington Post subscription. I was only paying $2 a month through some promo via Amazon, but I canceled it. It was going to go up to $3 next year anyway, so I said, no. I want to be a part of this movement. And I know some people were saying, oh, well, if you canceling is the wrong move because you're going to be hurting the journalists there and the people who work there. I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. That's not my job.
No, and honestly, this was like such a bad move on their part because the Washington Post has been struggling for a while. They can't afford to lose subscribers. 8%? They were in danger of going under a while ago, and they've been teetering on the precipice. So that was the bad call. But that's what you get when, like these conglomerates buy out newspapers. They don't function the way they're supposed to.
Right. Do we think that point you just brought up, Pam, do we think that's why Bezos did this? Like, does he see WAPO as being like a strong wind away from being blown, into obscurity? And is he worried that if Trump does win, that WAPO will really go under, not to mention the numerous contracts that Bezos has with the US government. He has to be thinking about his own personal benefit here too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would benefit him if it just went bankrupt, right? Because he just would file bankruptcy on behalf of Washington Post and he would get a little kickback from that, obviously. But I don't know if it's that so much as that like he maybe was really buying into this ongoing narrative that I've been seeing, and I'm sure you guys have been seeing too, that people are just like, most people are just sick of the election either way. And that there's like a huge chunk of people that are like right down the middle and like they're like, I don't care about Kamala, I don't care about Trump, like fuck all the politics. And maybe he thought that they could play it like that and it would be a good business model. But people that are reading Washington Post are not coming for like a middle ground like that. And also most newspapers will come out and endorse, most news outlets come out and endorse a candidate.
Also, Bezos is a billionaire, and even if 8% have canceled and it stays that way, he can fund the Washington Post operations no problem. That's the crappy part about this. They could lose a lot of subscribers and use that as an excuse to go ahead and reduce their team, even though this really has no impact on Bezos's bottom line. He could keep this ship steady if he really wanted to, but he probably won't. Like Pam, I think you were saying there's, both of you were saying there's a lot of speculation as to why he did this. He wants to kind of cover his ass should Trump win re-election. But I buy it. I absolutely buy it. I can't figure out why else he would do this. I mean, that's what you do as a paper. You make an endorsement in this day and age. They've spent the last 10 years talking about how crappy a person Trump is, and now they're going to sit back and announce a week before the election, you know what? He sucks, and here's this avalanche of evidence, and you make the decision, y'all. We're not going to say anything.
Right. Like in the 11th hour, WAPO is just like, you know what? I understand both sides.
Right.
Like,
That toxic word. That toxic word I said nobody can ever use again. Did you two have a Washington Post subscription?
No.
I've been using the library.
Oh, okay.
I have a New York Times subscription.
Yeah, so do I. And that's part of the reason why I didn't mind canceling, because I still have another paper subscription.
Although New York Times, they're fucking around sometimes. I have more than once gone into cancel because they pissed me off, and they got me with the win back offers. They're like, don't leave us. You can keep your subscription for like $1 a month for the next 6 months. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine.
If anything, I'm just there for the crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
I enjoy reading the New York Times.
Oh, no,
front
I
page.
do too. But like to Laura's point, if there's like some fuckery going on, it's like, I get canceled. But then also the crossword puzzle's great. So
true. All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break and we'll talk about some other stories we've been keeping an eye on. We'll be right back.
So one story I wanted to bring up was this video of ballots being destroyed, which ended up turning out to be a deep fake. So federal officials actually stepped in after this video started going viral, showing mail-in ballots specifically from Pennsylvania being destroyed. The videos featured ballots from Bucks County, and they were being ripped up in this video. And the statement that officials made was that this was actually created by Russia as part of Moscow's efforts to influence the election. And they also said, this is something that I found interesting too. They also said that they expect Russia will, quote, create and release additional media content leading up to and in the weeks after the election in an effort to undermine trust in the integrity of the election and divide Americans. So not only do we have to worry about deepfakes going into the election, we have to worry about deepfakes after the election, stirring the pot, depending on who does or doesn't win. Russia is definitely pro-Trump. So, anything that they're trying to create in an effort to, kind of force a divide or distrust amongst Americans is going to be pro-Trump. And I wanted to bring this up because I know that we had been talking about fake videos leading up to this year. And we talked about our fears about how this might play a huge factor. And so I wanted to ask you both if you were expecting this to be more of an issue than it has been, because surprisingly, I feel like it hasn't come up that much.
No, I think I feel like we're in the window of time that I was the most concerned about right now. So I think the next week is going to be pivotal because I think when people start getting desperate, they become like cornered animals who just lash out and try everything. So I feel like the biggest potential we have for seeing an AI deep fake of like Trump or of Kamala or someone influential that could ultimately tip the scales. I feel like it's in the next week that we would see that. And
or even,
yeah,
sorry, the weeks following the election, because what's going to happen is, let's say Kamala wins, Trump's going to be posting all these deepfake videos of people stealing ballots, manipulating ballot boxes, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and I was curious about how you all felt about that as well, because I think I've been so consumed with like election lead up that it just completely crossed my mind that there could be some crazy stuff coming out after, because there's probably going to be a recount either way. Definitely if Trump loses. We saw what happened last time he lost. He did not go gracefully, and I don't expect him to do so this time. So
yeah, it's going to be fucked for the next few weeks, y'all. Like I know I already said earlier that I really think it could be a full week this time before we know for sure. I hope it's not. I hope we find out sooner. But I think the strategy here is going to be to flood the swing states with lawsuits to try and delay the outcome, because that gives Trump and his allies more time to sow the seeds of disinformation and make people not trust in the process. And all of these things are the building blocks to make it easier for them to overturn the results of an election that they don't like.
Yeah, I think we just have to hope that social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube, etc. will be detecting and labeling AI content when it catches it. We already see this a lot on Instagram, and actually it's caused a bunch of controversy. People are posting their own photos and then they're getting labeled as AI, and that's upsetting photographers who edit their photos in standard apps, like any photographer would. That's just the standard process. So it seems like the AI labeling is pretty sensitive. And as long as things are being clearly labeled as this is a deep fake, this is AI generated, hopefully that will help tamp down some of the outrage that could come from these deep fakes going viral. Now, are people going to believe these are deep fakes? That's a whole other question, because we're talking about the people who believe the government has a button to fire a hurricane toward Florida.
Right.
So there's no convincing these people what the truth is.
Well, and what I'm also concerned about is the inverse, where something damning does come out and the Trump campaign automatically says that's a deep fake, it's AI, even if it is totally legitimate. We're not going to go into it today because there just haven't been any updates, and we don't want to contribute to any disinformation, but there have been rumors going around for the last week or so that there's some kind of damning video that hasn't come out yet. And immediately following those rumors starting, a lot of Trump allies immediately jumped on the bandwagon of whatever you see is fake. Whatever you see is an AI deep fake. It's not real, without getting into what it is. So I think that's what we have to look forward to if something damning does come out.
They will have a really hard time pushing that narrative, I think, if it's being covered so vigorously in reputable media outlets. Because I'm just thinking about like the Trump tape from 2016, the Access Hollywood tape, something like that gets so much attention. Yeah, sure, that people can say, oh, guys, it's fake, CNN. But I don't know. There's a certain like threshold I think this stuff crosses where it's like, you can't deny it's it's real.
Yeah, but the thing is, there was no denial that it was real in 2016 and he won.
Mhm.
Like the
Yeah.
AI excuse wasn't a thing then and he still won. I think what concerns me is honestly, I don't know what could actually come out against him at this point that would be so damning as to completely tank the election for them, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, because he's done so much and people still vote for him anyway. The people who are still voting for him don't care.
I agree. I don't think there's anything that would stop his base from voting for him anyway. You want to talk about the real ballot box?
Yeah. So we live in such a weird time, y'all, because at the same time that we're hearing about these AI deepfakes of ballots being destroyed that was created by the Russians, hundreds of ballots actually were damaged in Oregon and Washington state when a couple of ballot boxes were lit on fire. Somebody put fireworks in them. And you can see the legitimate video of these ballot boxes being pulled open and having flames fanning out of them. You can see the destroyed ballots coming out. It's really disheartening because it makes it hard to tell truth from reality when, on the one hand, we have something that is a verified AI deepfake and another thing that is legitimate and being investigated by the FBI. It's really tough. And I think especially in a country where we have such low media literacy, it just contributes to the confusion that a lot of people are feeling. And that's really difficult in an election year like this.
One question I had about this incident and others like it is, what happens for the people who did put their ballots in those boxes? So this had happened early on Monday. The last time the ballots were picked up were on Saturday morning. And local officials said that those who had deposited ballots since Saturday morning should contact the local elections office, and then they can investigate if they've received their ballot or not. And I really hope people are doing that, because it's a crying shame to think of these votes getting lost to some asshole arsonist.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, and you have to think about too how many like people don't know, like, if their ballots even make it at all. There was one year that I went to drop off my grandparents' ballots at the post office, and I was about to just like drop them in. Well, I did drop them in the slot, and as I was dropping them in the slot, I was like, wait a minute, it says postage necessary. It was like one of the smaller elections, but still, you know. And I had to go into the post office and be like, hey, like, is there postage necessary for the ballots? And they're like, oh yeah, for like this county there is. And I said, okay, well, like, I just dropped my grandparents' ballots off. Can I just like have them? Cause like City Hall's right next door. So I'll just take them there. And they were like, okay. And he pulled out like a stack of ballots. So clearly a lot of people didn't know. And I was like,
Ooh.
I'll just take them all and drop them off if you want. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Which in hindsight, I realized like was like, they probably shouldn't have let me do that. But I was like,
that's crazy.
This is ridiculous that they like didn't make that more clear.
Pam, you're an American hero for that.
Seriously.
I was like, everybody needs to vote. And I just walked over to City Hall and I was like, here you go. Special delivery from the post office.
Was anyone at City Hall like, ma'am, how did you come into possession of 50 absentee ballots?
No, it was literally just like a steel box, you know?
Oh my gosh.
So I was just there like stuffing them all in.
Pam G, I'm going to get on the phone with Biden and I'm going to get you a medal for valor.
Of freedom.
That too. All of the medals for your heroic efforts. That's
Seriously.
pretty cool though. Good for you.
Well, at first I was like, I was just like, okay, if they say no, then I'll just pay for the postage. Like, it's fine. That was like my other thing.
And she was like willing to buy stamps.
I was like, I'll just pay for the postage, or I could just take them next door. And the guy was like, you can just take them next door here. Just take them all. And I said, okay, great.
Yeah. Oh, good for you.
Well, on the absentee ballot front, Most states should have this. I know Georgia definitely does. You can track your absentee ballot in your state's voter portal. So they should be able to confirm for you when your ballot was received and whether or not it was accepted. So for anyone who's voting absentee in this election, highly recommend logging into your voter portal. Make sure that your absentee ballot was received and accepted. I have a feeling for the people in Oregon and Washington state whose ballots were damaged by these box fires. I have a feeling they would probably be allowed to fill out provisional ballots while their elections office researched whether or not their ballots had been received and whether or not they had been among the damaged. And provisional ballots, are then kept in the event that the tallies are too close and they need to turn to counting those provisional ballots and determining their eligibility. So that's probably what'll happen, I'm guessing. I don't know if anyone here has ever filled out a provisional ballot before. I have.
No, I mean, I did check the status of my mail-in ballots, and I had dropped it off at a Dropbox, but I did still check the status yesterday, and I turned on notifications for future ballots to get an email when there's status updates, like if it's been counted or received, all that. So that's a nice peace of mind thing. And I think, a lot of states are doing that these days, and all states should. If not this election cycle, hopefully within the next election cycle or two, because that's just, let's get down with the times, y'all. It's a quality of life improvement for all Americans. So Pam mentioned Bad Bunny and this comedian Tony Hinchcliffe. These terrible remarks were made at Trump's big Madison Square Garden rally over the weekend. This was one of his big closing events, and it was just a disaster. I believe Drudge Report described it as a spectacle of hate, which I thought was a really good way to put it. So this comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, he made this joke about Puerto Rico being a floating pile of garbage, like Pam said, which immediately caused a ton of backlash. It's still ongoing as of Tuesday night, amongst Hispanics in particular. And it wasn't the only offensive remark he and other speakers made. I mean, one after the other, just horrible, vile, vulgar remark after horrible, vile, vulgar remark. The View's Sunny Hostin summarized her feeling and the situation well the other day. I want to play it because I thought it was really good.
This Puerto Rican has something to say about the island that I love, where my family is from. Puerto Rico is trash. We are Americans, Donald Trump. Americans. We voluntarily serve disproportionately high in the military while you have bone spurs. And we vote. Pennsylvania is home to almost 500,000 Puerto Ricans. North Carolina, 115,000. Georgia, 100,000. Arizona, 64,000. Wisconsin, 61,000. Michigan, 43,000. Nevada, 27,000. We vote Donald Trump. Trash. And by the way, Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin, Bad Bunny, Luis Fonsi, and Mark Anthony have over 345 million followers on Instagram. I think you only have 26 million, since you care so much about stop. And we don't like what was said about Puerto Rico. And we know how to take the trash out, Donald Trump. Trash that has been collecting since 2016. And that's you, Donald Trump. And finally, my fellow Puerto Ricans, Trash Collection Day is November 5th, 2024. Don't forget it.
So like she mentions, J-Lo, Mark Anthony, and I think biggest of all, Bad Bunny, have all come out and endorsed Kamala at this point. Bad Bunny has now made 2 statements about it, if not more at this point. I know he initially posted on his Instagram story, and then just earlier today, he posted this video celebrating Puerto Rico with the caption, garbage. He has major influence in the Hispanic community. I mean, I was looking at his stats on Spotify earlier today, 65 million active monthly listeners.
And
he's very
Puerto
popular.
Rico loves him.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's done a lot for his home island. So that's another thing too to keep in mind.
And as Sonny pointed out, a lot of Puerto Ricans in critical swing states, including Pennsylvania, where there's roughly 500,000 Puerto Ricans. I'm honestly wondering if this is the October surprise. Now, it's of their own doing. That's a big surprise here. Is this, are we going to look back on this as the October surprise?
Could be. I mean, I think it's important to remember that Biden won Pennsylvania last time, but it wasn't a huge victory. He only had about 81,000 more votes in Pennsylvania than Trump. And when you think about the fact that there are 500,000 Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania, that is more than enough to blow that difference out of the water. We always know Pennsylvania is close anyway. Pennsylvania is honestly, I think, one of the narrow paths to victory that Trump would need, at least if we were to think about the election being a normal election where there's not a bunch of fuckery happening, because we know there will be. But if you're purely talking about paths to 270, it's really hard for him to get there without Pennsylvania. So this might have been a moment where Bone Spurs McGee shot himself in the foot. So he didn't have to be president again.
Well, and the Trump campaign knows this has been bad for them as well. They have tried to separate themselves from Tony Hinchcliffe's remarks. But yeah, the backlash to this, I would say, is pretty damn relentless. In terms of Pennsylvania, I'm actually pretty optimistic about Pennsylvania.
Same.
This is anecdotal, but my grandfather actually voted for Trump in 2016 and changed his vote in 2020. He voted Biden in 2020 and is voting Kamala in 2024. And I think there's a lot of people like that. And my grandma just hates Trump, always has hated him. I think there's a lot of people like them, and they live in Bucks County, a county that's getting a lot of attention in the media. I think there's a lot of people like that who are slowly seeing the truth about Donald Trump and have seen more of the truth over the last 4 years. So that's what's happening there. We'll see in a week or two if that ends up being the October surprise.
Yeah.
Certainly will make an impact.
And in general, I know you already kind of emphasized this, Andrew, but this event was so hateful. I mean, hateful towards anyone who is not a diehard Trump supporter, towards political rivals, towards various underrepresented groups. I mean, there have been a lot of comparisons made between this and a 1939 rally that also took place at Madison Square Garden, where American fascists came together to embrace European fascist agendas. And I see things like this, and there are times where, like, I can't help but wonder if they're doing it on purpose to get people to talk about the scandal and distract from maybe the things they don't want us paying attention to. But regardless, it was sickening.
Yeah.
Everything about it.
New York Times, Washington Post, everybody was covering it as a hate-filled, hate-fueled events. So, as it rightly should be. I mean, sometimes there's this phrase that's been used over the last few months. The media will try to sane wash Donald Trump. They try to explain what he did or what he said in a sane way, when they should be just saying, that guy's fucking crazy. Did you try to follow that? Because we didn't try to follow it, but they try to follow it and they sane wash.
For sure. And the thing is, they just keep doing it. It's like, this has been happening for nearly a decade, y'all. You haven't learned?
Yeah.
Kind of related to the last story, but just in general, Trump is continuing to push his playbook for overturning the election, assuming he doesn't like the outcome of it. And specifically at this Madison Square Garden rally, he talked about this secret plan that he has for the House with House Speaker Mike Johnson, who was also in attendance. And there's a lot of speculation that they may be referring to or alluding to the 12th Amendment, which allows the House to elect the president if neither candidate reaches 270. I don't really see a scenario where neither candidate can reach 270. However, I think, again, their plan is to delay certification at the state level as long as they can. And if we find ourselves in January when results need to be certified, I could see the House trying to fuck around. With that said, I mean, the new House is going to be sworn in on January 3rd, and it's the vice president who swears in the new House. So at that point, that'll still be Kamala Harris. So I don't know exactly what they think they're trying to pull here, but at the same time, all of this is unprecedented. Like, our systems and like the infrastructure of our democracy have been so weakened by all of this, by everything that has happened over the last nearly decade at this point, that there may be ways that they're imagining twisting this around so they can accomplish it. Like, I remember us talking about this in 2020. It was a failed coup. And usually when people are unsuccessful at overthrowing their government, they don't say, oh, well, I guess we didn't do that. They try again. And they're going to try a bunch of different ways to get it done.
Oh, the narrative's going to be Kamala is certifying the vote and, she's stealing the election since she's the one who's going to be leading the proceedings. So and
we have to remember that Mike Johnson was an architect of Trump's 2020 attempts to try and overthrow the election. So they're absolutely planning to do something very similar. And it all, again, goes down. It starts at the state level, with each state's board of elections. Georgia is one of those that's really going to fuck around.
That's why we need to hope it is going to be a landslide where the victory is so decisive that there's not even room for debate. If we're talking about tens of millions of vote difference, all that, just like totally fuck him over. That's what I'm hoping for.
That's what it needs to be, because honestly, y'all, if it's really close and it ends up going to the Supreme Court like it did in 2000, they will absolutely give it to him, just like they did with George Bush. But something I wanted to bring up to kind of end on like a positive, hopeful note and hopefully make everyone feel bolstered. Did y'all see Michelle Obama's
positive? Oh, I'm so excited.
I am.
Yay.
I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. And hey, You're not ready for me yet, because we're about to talk about electoral college predictions and I might surprise you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Did y'all see Michelle Obama's speech in Michigan? She was on fire. And Michelle is always a wonderful speaker. Obama himself even quipped once that he's the only person stupid enough to try and speak after Michelle Obama because she's so incredible. She was unapologetic in the way that she addressed the current tone of this campaign and this election. She spent a lot of time directly appealing to undecided voters, particularly undecided male voters, asking them to think about the women in their lives and asking the women in those men's lives to not vote the way that somebody else is telling them to vote. And she did an amazing job of highlighting all the ways in which women's health care is going to be incredibly negatively impacted by a second Trump administration. I also loved that she was unapologetic about her anger towards people who are expecting Kamala Harris to be perfect, but are willing to turn a blind eye to Trump literally shitting his depends every second of every day.
Double standard is crazy. And I primarily blame the media. It's just they always hold her and Biden to a higher standard that they've been holding Trump.
And but speaking of higher standard, I feel like that was kind of Michelle's whole shtick in previous elections. She was famously, if they go low, we go high. And I just kind of really love this new version of her that she's showing us, where she's kind of like taking the gloves off and she's like, you know what, the time for that is over. And it's really like inspiring to kind of see her not afraid to go up there and really kind of be impassioned while she talks about a lot of this stuff. Like there's so much emotion going on in her voice, or there was so much emotion going on in her voice. And that's what really struck me about this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I may have joked on the show at some point in the last year. We need to amend those original iconic words. When they go low, we go high too. When they go low, we go higher. We need to roll around in the dirt with them a little bit. We can't be the oh, ha, ha, we're so nice. We got to roll in the dirt. We got to throw some insults at them. We got to call them dipshits when they're dipshits, like Tim Walz did in the last week in his Midwestern accent. Dipshit.
Honestly,
that's pretty good, actually.
He does it
because I'm wearing this camo hat.
Yeah.
He is effective at doing that. He is able to like thread that needle of being like wholesome, down to earth, dad energy, while at the same time, if you fuck around enough, you're about to get Tim angry, and you don't want to get Tim angry.
Yeah. It's like, oh, dad's mad again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to make some electoral college predictions, and apparently Laura is going to be leaving us a little optimistic. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. All right, so I thought this would be fun. Let's make some predictions. They will be entertaining or horrifying to look back on in a couple of weeks from now. So, Pam, can we start with you? What is your electoral college prediction?
So I feel like I was very frugal with mine because I wanted to keep my expectations realistic. So I have the Kamala taking it in 289 electoral votes, with Trump getting 246.
Any states that you felt a little tripped up on? Or?
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth on whether or not Georgia would go blue again. And I was also like going back and forth on Nevada, because I just kind of feel like that's also a trickier undertaking as well. But in the end, I ended up making Nevada go blue, and then I had Georgia go red, like, which would be like worst case scenario. But I do hope that they surprise us again and go blue. And yeah, that would be a great moment for us on the show because of Laura, obviously, and it would just be a great moment in general. But
if all three of our, Pam, we know California will, but like if Nevada and Georgia pull it off too, that'd be awesome. Honestly, though, I totally understand where you're coming from on this, because I think much like you, Pam, both Nevada and Georgia are also going back and forth and trying to decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, I'm not feeling optimistic about Nevada.
I was like particularly optimistic, but it's also only 6 electoral votes.
Yeah.
So it's not like a whole lot. Georgia has a bit more, like double that, or almost.
Yeah, we're 16.
Yeah.
Which in your map, you said Georgia's going red.
I did say Georgia's going red, but even with Georgia going red, it still gives that would be, you need 270 to win. So that's up by almost 20 points.
Yeah. You said North Carolina blue, Pennsylvania blue.
Yes.
Arizona
I did
red.
say Pennsylvania blue.
By the way, y'all, we used 270towin.com to play around with the map and get our predictions. A fun feature of 270towin.com is you actually can grab a permanent URL to your own map, so you can share it with your friends or your fellow podcast co-hosts, as we're doing today. Yeah. So for me, I'm saying Dems 292, Republicans 246. I'm saying Nevada goes to Kamala. I said Georgia is going to Kamala, but North Carolina is going to Trump. And then I said Kamala will win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So that's how I got to 292 for the Dems.
What are your feelings about Nevada? Because as I was just saying, you and I are in similar boats. We're like, It really could go either way. I feel like Georgia and Nevada really is a coin toss.
It just feels really split here. I'm optimistic we could win because of how many Californians are coming to Nevada, which California, again, very blue. So some of the blue vote is coming over here. Biden did win Nevada in 2020. But on the other hand, we do have a Republican governor. The Democratic governor lost in 2020. But the Democratic senator stayed in. So it just feels like very much a toss up. But I just, living here, I got to hope that Kamala is going to take Nevada. And now with this Puerto Rico twist, that puts a whole other wrinkle in this.
I had another question for you about yours. Did you say you think North Carolina is going to go red or blue?
I said red.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm not seeing a lot of positive evidence out of North Carolina either, personally.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did give Kamala your state, Laura, because I believe in you. And I believe in
I only get one
Georgians.
vote, so
Laura, I called you the other day and I said, here's how to vote 10 times.
Andrew,
and tell all your friends.
No, dude, don't fucking
just like
say
on Dancing
that.
with the Stars.
Yo, we're being recorded right now. Trump is going to take this and he's going to use it in his ads in the days following the election to be like, see
all the liberals.
Okay, but George Soros told me it'd be okay to tell you, and his check cleared, and I could buy a yacht now. So I'm just following his advice.
Well, can you buy me a yacht?
Sure, absolutely.
I was going to say, if you got Soros money, you're getting me a yacht.
If this clip is still running on Newsmax, check us out at millennialshow.com. That's millennialshow.com. New episodes every Wednesday.
And fuck you, Steve Bannon. Since he just got out of prison, I felt like that audience should hear that. I feel like my prediction here, I can't tell if it is just a hopeful prediction, because I don't know if it's entirely like rational, but hear me out. I am predicting a landslide here.
I just looked at this.
Yeah. Okay. Laugh now. We'll see where it is in a week. But here's the thing. I'm predicting Democrats will take 326 electoral votes, with Republicans getting 212. The main thing I'm thinking about here that really drives this up is Texas. And y'all, I know that Texas is known for being super red. The reality is Texas, much like the rest of the South, has a very diverse and growing population that is being held hostage by their GOP-led state legislature. And in recent years, although Texas has remained solidly red, it has been trending more towards Democrats. I also follow the money here. The Harris campaign broke fundraising records in the state of Texas. They raised something like $33 million there. It was nuts. She's also been dedicating a lot of focus to Texas as this campaign draws to a close. It is clear to me that Texas, at the very least, is becoming a more serious part of the Democratic strategy. I think another thing to take into consideration here is the Senate race coming out of Texas.
I was just going to ask you about that. Like, how much of that do you think is that the consolation prize of Ted Cruz losing his Senate seat would still be worth it?
Yeah. Well, people hate Ted Cruz, including Texans. Right. And there's no reason that Colin Allred should be performing as well as he is in a state like Texas that is believed to still be so traditionally red. So is Texas going to turn this time around? It might not be this time, but I'm going to throw in for it anyway, because I feel like of recent electoral history, this is the closest we've ever come with Texas. So I'm going to bet on Texas going blue, which is probably the craziest thing I've ever said. And hey, a week from now, y'all might be laughing at me. That's fine. I'll be optimistic. Otherwise on here, I have Pennsylvania going to Harris, Michigan, Wisconsin as well. Georgia, although I feel like Georgia really is a coin toss. North Carolina, I feel like is probably going to go more red. I've been looking at a lot of the early voting trends in these states to kind of help inform the way that I'm feeling. Georgia has broken early turnout records again. We broke them in 2020. We've broken them again this year. And the demographics who've been turning out would seem to be in more of a Democratic favor. So you have 55% of the early vote coming from women, 45% of it coming from men, and only 33% of it coming from white people, and the rest of it coming from people of color, which is ultimately why I'm putting Georgia in the blue column, although we'll see what election day turnout looks like. Similarly, but kind of on the opposite side of things, I listed Nevada as red, and it breaks my heart to say that.
Traitor.
I know, I'm an asshole, but looking at y'all's early voting trends.
Yeah, that's scaring me too.
Yeah, there is a decided Republican advantage coming out of y'all's early voting demographics. So I think Nevada is going to flip back red this time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was scaring me as well. I mean, we have like 2 to 3 weeks of early voting. So that's another factor too. People probably weren't exactly rushing to get their ballots in, even though I was.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Oh, something else I want to call out about Texas and its early voting trends. Early voting in Texas is like comparatively down compared to 2020, but there's a couple of reasons for that. One, Texas extended its early voting in 2020 because of COVID. So there was a longer period of time for people to do it. The other thing is that there are a number of very populous locations in Texas that have not released all of their early voting stats yet. So at this point, we don't know that we have an accurate count of how many early votes have been cast there. So I actually feel like it would not blow my mind if Texas went blue this time.
I'm with you.
It would not entirely surprise me.
Yeah. It's sort of like how Georgia was in 2020.
Yeah.
I agree. Ted Cruz is a huge factor. Colin Allred's a huge factor. Abortion is on the ballot. Another huge factor, of course. I can see why you feel optimistic about Texas for sure. And my prediction and Pam's, we had kind of similar numbers. They're not blowouts, but I'm still optimistic there could be that blowout similar to Laura's map. So we will see.
Honestly, I'm manifesting for a blowout because a blowout is going to be the thing that saves us from weeks and weeks and weeks of lawsuits and fuckery. So
yeah,
we got to turn out, y'all.
Texas prediction, is true.
God, I know. I know it sounds like a long insane shot.
No, but 40 electoral votes would be absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
I want a blowout as big as the one Trump's toilet sees the morning after he's feasted on McDonald's. Just the biggest blowout possible.
Oh, so every morning because that's all he eats.
E. coli breakout.
After the E. coli breakout.
Okay, got it. That's a pretty huge blowout.
That means he lost Texas and Georgia. So next week, we will not release an episode on Wednesday because, as we've been saying, things will probably not be finalized on election night. So the plan, though, is to record an episode as soon as possible after it is called for one of the two candidates. We'll see whenever that is. So stay tuned, y'all. But we do intend to record as quick as possible and get that episode out as quick as possible to laugh and cry or laugh or cry or I don't want to think about it too much right now.
Yeah, honestly, I think either way I'm crying. It'll be for two very different reasons.
Will this hat ever appear on camera again? We will see. My Harris Walls camo hat. We will see.
We're going to have to host a funeral if it doesn't go our way for your hat.
Yeah. So some closing thoughts for the audience. First of all, take care of yourself, and also keep in mind, take a positive attitude over the next week. I know a lot of people are nervous, but keep in mind some positives. Biden did win handily in 2020. Trump has effectively lost 3 election cycles if you include the midterms in 2018 and 2022. There's plenty of data showing strong voter turnout for Kamala Harris. Trump is constantly embarrassing every day, and every day people are noticing and they're disgusted by him. And also remember, and I direct this point especially at Laura, Jon Stewart just the other day signed a contract renewing his Daily Show hosting duties into 2025. Wow, Laura, your Mac even created hearts. Did you see that?
I did. Yeah. You know what's funny? One time, it might have actually been when we went to the Daily Show for my 21st birthday. I remember sitting in the back row of the audience, and I made heart hands at Jon Stewart like this, in between takes, and he saw me, and he was like confused about what I was doing, so he tried to do it back, and I was like, "Oh my God, Jon Stewart made heart hands at me."
He knows I exist.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that one's less serious of a suggestion, but keep your friends close too. Talk to people over the next week who are morally aligned with you. And I think that'll help everybody get through the next couple of weeks.
I would say, again, reiterating what I said at the top of the show, polls mean nothing. And I think it's important to remember that it is in the media's best interest to treat this race like it's a real nail biter. And I'm not saying it won't be, but we have seen in the last 2 cycles that a lot of the media narratives have proven to be false. And I think buying into whatever narrative you're seeing on your 24-hour cable news network of choice is probably setting you up for disappointment one way or another. I really, really think the biggest opportunity for being shocked or surprised is to accept what the media is predicting as the gospel, because they have been so wrong in the way that they have handled this over the last couple of cycles. With that said, just echoing what Andrew said, it is going to be a long few days, honestly, probably a long few weeks ahead. And it's going to be really important to take care of yourself. Try to the extent possible not to be all consumed by this. If you voted and if you've made sure that the people in your life have a plan to vote, you've done what you can do. So try not to get sucked up into all the drama that's going to come over the next few weeks, because it's just going to make you crazy. So I think protect your sanity and just try to protect your peace and do things that you know you need to do to make yourself feel as relaxed as possible. I say all of that where I'm like totally rambling because I don't feel relaxed at all. But, you know, do as I say, not as I do.
Pam, do you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
I feel like you all just covered a lot of it. So I'll just say, just get out and vote. You know, there's still time. In a lot of these states, you can register day of to vote as well. So just look up what the laws are in your state and get out and vote if you can. And try and get to the polls early if you can too, because those lines are going to be long as the day goes on.
Yeah. Also, Trump is going to try to declare victory on election night.
Stop the count. I won.
Yeah.
Just ignore him.
Yeah, if you're in line, stay in line.
Listen to me.
Listen to all those tweets.
Good luck, everybody. Good luck, America. If you have any feedback about today's discussion, you can email millennialshow@gmail.com or hit us up on Patreon or social media. Here's some feedback we received from Casey about last week's episode. Halloween is coming up, so I wanted to include this. She was talking about the drop in trick-or-treaters. She said, I was listening to your latest episode. You're talking about seeing many less trick-or-treaters. I wanted to share my perspective as a newer parent, 6-month-old and 4-year-old in Texas. I think there are 2 big contributors to the change. One, you're on track with trunk or treat, but you talked about this being a rise from COVID. At least in our area, this started probably in the 10 years prior to COVID and was a big push from churches in our area as a way to engage the community. There are obviously a few ways to look at this in terms of motivation. It was always marketed as the safer option, but it obviously also gives them a way to participate in what I know some churches used to shun as a secular holiday. And reason number two, my husband and I noticed the last couple of years with our son that kids no longer knock on doors. When we were kids, you could knock on any door with a porch light on, and it was honestly a great way kids practiced respectful interactions with adults. But today, at least in our area, everyone just sits out in their driveways to hand out their candy. So kids only go to houses that someone is sitting in front of and don't approach other houses, even if the porch light is on, assuming they aren't participating. It's a totally different vibe, and I miss the old days of knocking on doors or ringing doorbells. Honestly, not sure my 4-year-old has ever done either, which is just weird to think about. Enjoyed the discussion and hope you all have a great Halloween. Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
I want to say, luckily in my neighborhood, with the exception of the COVID year, kids do still knock on the doors and hit the doorbell. And I love that, especially looking at the Ring Cam and there's a giant inflatable dinosaur taking up the entire fisheye lens. But yeah, those are some interesting perspectives, especially with the churches. I hadn't thought about that. Well, that concludes this week's episode. Coming up in After Dark today, I got some new gossip to share. Let's say this is a continuation of the Friends series. One of my friends actually ghosted me and Pat and now is looking for other friends online. We saw him posting elsewhere. I'm like, what the fuck? You're ghosting us? And then going elsewhere? What about us? What about us? So we'll talk about that in After Dark today. And then we're going to extend that discussion into the topic of when a friend breaks up with you and then wants you back, what do you do?
After Dark is part of Mega Millennial, which you get every week when you're a patron or Apple Podcast subscriber. It's also ad-free because we prefer your support over working with advertisers. Visit patreon.com/millennial to pledge today, or Apple Podcast users can tap into the show and subscribe to the Mega Millennial feed.
Other patron benefits include recording studio access, monthly variety shows, access to our planning meetings, and much more. It's easy to get started. Apple Podcasts and Patreon offer 7-day free trials and annual subscription discounts.
We also have a new installment of Smart Mouths up, the second one of the month, by the way. I found one in which we were talking about Joe Biden, and he was getting attacked because he wasn't being honest. He was exaggerating the truth. And I was like, oh my goodness, how times have changed. So check that out on Patreon. Time for some recommendations. What do you have for us, Pam?
I wanted to recommend 866-OUR-VOTE, which is the number that you can call in case there's any fuckery at your polling place. Not that there will be, but there might be. So that's just a good number to keep in mind. You can dial that if for whatever reason you get turned away and you think that's fishy. Just make sure you stay at your polling place and you can talk to a volunteer who will let you know what your rights are. Probably they'll tell you to request a provisional ballot, but they'll also get someone over there to make sure that, there's no interference going on as well for other people.
Well, prior to us canceling them, I wanted to share a tool from the Washington Post that actually lets you see the political donations from both Dems and Republicans split out in your local area via your zip code. So, for example, in my area, I learned that Dems are donating at the same volume that Republicans are, but Republicans are donating more per person. So the Republicans, I guess, have a little more money to spare or are a little more intrigued by the Trump Bibles than Kamala Harris's fans are by the friendship bracelets. So it's interesting to see how people are donating in your area. We'll include a link in the show notes to that tool.
My recommendation is for, again, maintaining your sanity. Try not to stay up all night next Tuesday if you're in the US. I know it's really tempting to want to stay up late and hope that the results will come quickly. I think gone are the days where a victor is announced before midnight on election night. So it's going to be important for you to stay hydrated, get plenty of rest, because I think we're going to be waiting a few days for these results. Sorry.
Fine. Well, pals, make sure you're following the show in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And we would appreciate a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also, don't forget, we are releasing each episode on YouTube. After Dark starts in a moment for patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Godspeed. I'm Andrew.
Good night and good luck. I'm Laura.
And I'm Kamala.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.